The top stories tonight and Y News. A research shows that long working hours have led to hundreds of thousands of deaths each year.
Workers in the Philippines who sustained injuries or have died while working from home will now be compensated.
The Philippines Department of Health suggests no COVID-19 vaccine brand announcement to prevent crowding in vaccination sites. The Department of the Interior and Local Government orders local officials to submit a report on how they plan to transport COVID-19 vaccine.
The Department of Foreign Affairs refuses to recognize China's unilateral imposition of a fishing moratorium in the South China Sea.
And thousands of shoppers run for safety after one of China's tallest thousands of shoppers run for safety after one of China's tallest skyscrapers began to shake. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, May 19, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. World health experts warn that working long hours is killing hundreds of thousands of people a year in a worsening trend that may accelerate further due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Del De Castro will tell us why.
The first global study regarding loss of life associated with longer working hours was published by the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization. The study finds that in 2016, 398,000 people died of stroke, while 347,000 died of heart disease brought about by long working hours of at least 55 hours a week. That was an increase of nearly 30% from 2000. The joint study showed that most victims, 72%, were men and were middle-aged or older. Often the deaths occurred much later in life, sometimes decades later than the shift's work. It also showed that people living in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific region, which includes China, Japan, and Australia, were the most affected. The study concludes that working 55 hours or more per week leads to a 35% higher risk of suffering from stroke and a 17% higher risk of dying from ischemic heart disease if compared to a 35 to 40 hours work week. WHO Technical Officer Frank Biga, on the other hand, recommends for companies to cap the working hours, especially during pandemic when some countries go into lockdown and a 10% increase in overtime is observed. Del De Castro, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A disability or death resulting from an injury sustained while working from home is now compensable. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Any employee from both public and private sector may be compensated for injuries sustained while in the performance of their duties or assigned tasks in their dwelling places. The said policy is in recognition of the new and alternative avenues employees carry out their work. According to ECC Executive Director Stella Sipagan Banawis, they based their decision on the case of a teacher who died while working from home.
So pinipipare niya yung gadget na yun or something, na-electrocute po siya. So, yung injury na yun, sabi ng sub-report, compensable, namatay po yung worker.
Benefits under the ECP include cash assistance for those who lost wages due to work-related illnesses, reimbursements of medical expenses, death and funeral benefits, and a cash assistance. Persons with work-related disabilities may also avail of rehabilitation services which include free physical, speech or occupational therapy, assistive devices, and livelihood training and financial assistance. ECC clarifies that those who contracted COVID-19 while working from home is not yet included in the compensation. But a group of workers said any work-related disease should be compensated.
Ang mga diseases na ito ay resulta ng mga workload na sobra-sobra para sa mga manggagawa o kaya nagdudulot ito ng anxiety, depression, burnout sa kanila.
Employees working at the private sector may apply for the benefits at the SSS while government employees may apply to the GSIS. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health is looking to implement a policy wherein local governments will no longer announce the brand of COVID-19 vaccine available in vaccination sites. Aiko Miguel reports why.
People crowded a mall at Parañaque City the other day after knowing that Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines will be used in the vaccination site. Following the incident, the National Vaccination Operations Center said they will implement a new strategy in which local government units will no longer announce the brand of COVID-19 vaccine doses to prevent people from crowding for their preferred brand of jab.
Hindi na i-announce kung anong bakunang ibibigay. So kung gusto nyo magpabakuna, pumunta kayo sa ganitong facility o kaya vaccination sites. Tapos kung ano yung bakuna na available, yun ang dapat kunin nila. Kung anong bakuna ang available, dapat kunin mo na. So that will help the flow.
The health officials stressed that this has always been the policy of the government's vaccination program, taking on the general principle that getting a COVID-19 vaccine, regardless of the brand, is the most effective weapon against the disease. Kabutahe also said that only healthcare workers were given the right of first refusal when there were only 2 vaccine brands available in the country, Sinovac and AstraZeneca, when the government began its immunization drive in March. Vaccine expert and executive director of Philippine Foundation for Vaccination, Dr. Lulu Bravo, assures all COVID-19 vaccines approved by health experts are safe and effective to protect against the deadly virus.
What matters most is the effectiveness and the impact that a vaccine can do to the country. Basta't dumaan sa pag-aaral at sa pananaliksik at pumasa sa ating mga eksperto. We have hundreds of vaccine experts. Pag yan ay sinabi nila na okay sa atin, okay yan. Huwag tayong magpatumpik-tumpik.
Meanwhile, Undersecretary Kabutahe says that all the 2 million nearly expired doses of AstraZeneca vaccines have been distributed.
Ina-assure ng ating Philippine FDA may stability data yan. So, ibig sabihin, even before the expiry, hanggang sa expiry date, stable pa rin yung ating vaccine. All the vaccines have an EUA of 6 months from manufacturing. So, kaya natin minamadali, bakunahan ng mga tao para magkaroon ng protection, not because these are expiring.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government will now strictly monitor the vaccination performance of local government units. Meanwhile, LGUs are ordered to submit a report on how they plan to transport COVID-19 vaccines. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The government aims herd immunity by November 27, 2021. To achieve this, the Philippines must be able to administer 500,000 COVID-19 vaccine shots every day or 3 million shots every week. However, this is possible once the vaccine supplies in the country are stable. According to Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, once a bulk of vaccine supplies arrive in the country, DILG will strictly monitor the vaccine performance of the local government units. In Metro Manila, 120,000 jabs should be reached daily. According to the Secretary, apart from ramping up the vaccination efforts of the LGUs, DILG will also ensure that more vaccines reach more provinces to meet the overall target. Anyo also stressed the need for LGUs to report on the transportation mechanism for the vaccines, to monitor if the said transportation is compliant with the requisite safe handling of the vaccines. This following an incident wherein 2 boxes of COVID-19 vaccines bound for the Polillo Island in Quezon Province were nearly wasted after the boat carrying them capsized after hitting a partly submerged concrete post. He has directed the Philippine National Police or PNP as well as the Bureau of Fire Protection to work closely with the Department of Health and LGUs to ensure the speed delivery of vaccines to the provinces. President Rodrigo Duterte has directed the DILG to supervise the transport and the handling of the COVID-19 vaccines. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police has deployed its medical reserve force to various vaccination centers in Quezon City to help out in administering COVID-19 vaccine doses and prevent overcrowding. Leah Ilagan reports.
Members of the PNP Medical Reserve Force were assigned at the San Francisco High School, the Project 6 Elementary School, and the Masambong Elementary School, which are all being utilized as vaccination centers for city residents. PNP Chief Police General Guillermo Eleazar says local government units requested for their help. This is to avoid overcrowding on vaccination sites.
Mula sa araw na ito, nag-provide tayo ng 3 vaccination teams na kinibilangan ng 15 nurses sa lungsod ng Quezon base na rin sa request ng Quezon City LGU.
The PNP chief assured that the MRF personnel would be provided personal protective equipment and vitamins to keep them COVID-free.
We are conducting refresher training sa more than 400 members of MRF para sa programang ito.
Meanwhile, personnel from the National Capital Region Police Office Medical and Dental Unit will begin their reorientation on vaccination in preparation for the inoculation of the A4 priority group, which is being eyed this month. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The government targets to achieve herd immunity in Metro Manila and other areas with high COVID-19 cases 6 months from now. Meanwhile, the OVERWORK research is recommending to prioritize bulk of vaccine supply for the National Capital Region. Arlene Delgado will tell us why.
The government is expecting to achieve herd immunity against COVID-19 in National Capital Region +8 by November. NCR +8 comprises Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Rizal, Laguna, Pampanga, Batangas, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao. The Department of Health says they are targeting to administer 108,000 doses per day.
We will be dependent on global supply. Although according sa announcement ni Secretary Galvez, we will receive about 10 to 11 million doses ng June, July, and August. So more or less steady yan.
Meanwhile, the OVERWORK research group is proposing to focus on Metro Manila to efficiently end the pandemic. The group recommends to allot 90% of the country's vaccine supply to Metro Manila and the remaining 10% to the rest of the country to continue vaccinating senior citizens and health workers who are at risk of having severe COVID-19. Currently, according to the group, 65% of the country's vaccine supply is given to NCR.
Simply by increasing the percentage of vaccines we send to the NCR, we will be able to decrease the overall caseload of the pandemic. If we want to achieve herd immunity in the NCR by Christmas, so this is 3 or 4 months, the target has to be around 200,000 doses per day in the NCR.
Based on Octa's suggested model, 40 to 50% or roughly 6.2 million individuals of Metro Manila's 13.8 million population should be vaccinated to contain the virus in the region, while 70 to 80% or an estimated 9.6 million individuals should be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity against the virus. The group projects it would take 4 to 2 months to contain the virus if the government can administer 100,000 to 200,000 doses daily. Meanwhile, it would take 6 months to achieve herd immunity by administering 100,000 doses per day, 3 months for 200,000 doses per day, and 1.5 months for 300,000 doses per day.
So if we solve the problem here in NCR quickly, we can not just reduce transmissions by a very significant number. We will be able to open up quickly, jumpstart economic recovery. This is a strategic concern, and while government has already tacitly approved it, we believe that a model should guide it.
The DOH says over 3.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered to priority groups nationwide. Hardin Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health, or DOH, detected 4,700 new COVID-19 cases, bringing the country's total number of active infections to 49,951. Of these cases, 92.8% have mild symptoms, 2.2% have no symptoms, 1.36% are in moderate condition, 2.1% are severe, and 1.5% are in critical condition. The Philippines' overall tally of cases stood at 1,159,071. The death toll jumped to 19,507 after 136 more patients died. Meanwhile, the recovery count increased to 1,089,613 with 6,986 more survivors. The DOH also announced that a total of 3,299,470 doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered nationwide, wherein 17% or 786,528 people have completed their 2 doses. The country is currently administering an average of 108,201 vaccinations daily, with a current supply of 7,779,050 doses of COVID-19 vaccines.
For those watching our 24/7 live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has protested China's unilateral imposition of a fishing moratorium in the South China Sea. Rosa Licos will tell us why.
The Philippines does not recognize China's imposition of annual fishing ban in the South China Sea, including the West Philippine Sea. The Department of Foreign Affairs filed another diplomatic protest against China on this. China has imposed a unilateral fishing moratorium in the South China Sea from May 1 to August 16, 2021, which covers areas that the Philippines exercises sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction. DFA adds China's annual fishing moratorium extends far beyond China's legitimate maritime entitlements under UNCLOS, thus cannot be legally imposed or enforced in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines urges China to refrain from any action and activity that infringes on the country's sovereignty and jurisdiction. Before this, Malacanang has reiterated several times that despite the administration's stance to resolve the maritime disputes peacefully, the government will keep on defending the country's interest. Relevant agencies also have no plans to stop the maritime patrols over areas within our jurisdiction.
Mga kababayan, our principled position and stand on the West Philippine Sea remains. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Our agencies have been directed to do what they must and should to protect and defend our nation's interests. Our vessels will continue to patrol relevant areas to firmly assert what is ours. The Philippine Navy, the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources will be where they need to be.
Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The House of Representatives resumes its sessions with the Bayanihan 3 and economic charter change as its top priorities. Congress targets to pass the priority bills next month. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why live. Nel, go ahead.
Yes, Diego, the House of Representatives will not delay the passage of Bayanihan 3. According to House Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez, before the adjournment of session this June, they will approve the proposed Bayanihan to arise as one act or Bayanihan 3.
Is a consensus. We have to have additional support to our people, especially because the pandemic is still ongoing and raging.
Under the proposed law is the provision of 2,000 peso cash aid for every Filipino, regardless of social status. This aid will be given in 2 tranches. The Bayanihan 3 earmarks 420 billion pesos for the COVID-19 response and recovery interventions. Meanwhile, the lower house will finish their deliberations for the passage of the proposed amendments to the restrictive economic provisions of the 1987 constitutions before the session ends in June. If the Senate will take action on the bill, the amendment will have to go through a plebiscite, which the House leadership envisions to coincide with the 2022 elections.
Ngayon, kung magkakaroon ng plebisito, ang pinaka-ideal dyan, ang sabi ni Speaker, ay isama na sa national election para isahan lang ang gastos.
There are 7 proposed amendments under the resolution of both houses number 2. These include the lifting of restrictions in the provision that limit the participation of foreign investors. Also, the provision saying only Filipino citizens can control, own, or lease public utilities, educational institutions, mass media companies, and advertising companies in the country. According to some lawmakers, this will generate much-needed investments and jobs to counteract the economic contraction caused by the pandemic.
And when we go into that, into the stage for normalcy, then we would want the business sector to be really up and about and to be able to receive foreign investments, so that when we have more foreign investments, then we have more employment to our people and more taxes to the government.
Congressman Garbin repeatedly assured that the proposed charter change will cover only the economic provisions of the Constitution.
With the commitment of the Speaker that this will solely or exclusively confine sa economic tsa-tsa. Walang political provisions dito. Ito ay ikabubuti lang ng ating bayan.
The statement of Congressman Garbin has connection with some critics questioning the timing and coverage of the proposed amendments. Diego?
Thank you, Nel Maribohok, reporting live. The House of Representatives Committee on Human Rights holds a hearing today on community pantries that have sprouted across the Philippines after several lawmakers called attention to the police's harassment and red tagging of pantry organizers. However, the government's anti-communist task force defended its treatment of community pantry organizers, saying their initiatives made the government and the country look bad. Dante Amento tells us why.
Some groups and individuals stress that the government's efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic is failure. In fact, Gabriela Party List Representative Arlene Brosas says residents have initiated community pantries due to lack of assistance.
Dahil ang gobyerno ay nagkaroon ng palpak, no? Palpak, sabihin na natin yung totoo, palpak yung pandemic and crisis response. Dahil sa matagal na economic recession, longest lockdown, yan po yung mga problema.
But the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NTF-LCAC has responded. It is premature to say that the government failed in addressing the current pandemic situation.
It's too premature to tell that palpak tayo. In fact, I heard our honorable members of this committee a while ago, they're still asking for an inventory and audit of government projects and programs in relation to this ayuda and all that, di po ba?
The NTF-LCAC adds community pantries are being used by detractors to malign the government.
I would dare say, mag-open po kayo ng Google,
Hanapin niyo po community pantry in the Philippines. Chances are it will be reports on the Philippines' alleged incompetence and ineptitude to address poverty, food security in the midst of the pandemic.
The ACT Teachers Party List, on the other hand, criticizes the government through its NTF-LCAC in red-tagging community pantry organizers.
Makaka-discourage ito doon sa mga mamamayan natin na gusto rin namang tumulong at magbigay ng kanilang kaunting maibibigay doon sa mga mas mahirap nating mga mamamayan.
But NTF-LCAC spokesperson Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr. clarifies they are just responding on request of some residents to check community pantries in their areas.
Maraming netizens nagpo-post sa atin. They're asking us, why are there propaganda materials in these community pantries? So sabi ko, sir, I agree that we need to check. It's time that the DILG, PNP, and the AFP should monitor these activities, but exercise extreme caution.
Officials of the NTF-LCAC have attended the House Committee on Human Rights hearing today to clarify some issues being thrown to them. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Now that Metro Manila and neighboring provinces are in a relaxed community quarantine status, consumers of public utilities are advised to settle their bills as soon as possible. However, companies are sure to give consideration to pandemic-hit residents. Ray Palayo explains why.
The Manila Electric Company or Meralco has started issuing notice of disconnection immediately after the restriction was lowered to general community quarantine. Meralco said they are willing to assist if a customer cannot fully pay their overdue bills. The power giant advised customers to get in touch with them so they can arrange a lighter payment schedule. Otherwise, the standard disconnection will proceed.
Wala kaming promissory note. Ang mangyayari dito is maghahanap ng way kung paano ma-resolve yung kanilang arrears, either through a payment arrangement, which is individual in nature.
Meralco said that unpaid bills will be a burden to those involved in the power sector.
Pag hindi ang binabayaran ng customer, ibig sabihin hindi rin nababayaran yung paggawa ng kuryente at pagdaloy sa transmission lines at sa mga distribution utilities tulad namin. So mabigat yung implication.
Meanwhile, water concessionaire Maynilad will start issuing notice of disconnection on June 15. Customers who cannot pay their overdue bills may settle a down payment of 30 to 50% of their total bill. Their remaining balance can be settled in 3 months. Manila Water, meanwhile, will start giving disconnection notice on June 1, while the actual disconnection will start on June 15. Manila Water will accept a promissory agreement if a customer has no capacity to pay in full. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines launched the first 3D aerodrome tower simulator that will boost and improve modern aviation safety training for its personnel. Janice Enhenta reports.
The Department of Transportation or DOTR and Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines or CAAP launched the latest 3D aerodrome tower simulator. The simulator features a 315-degree horizontal field of view visual simulator.
The new simulator, which is first of its kind in the Philippines, will aid air traffic controllers in training, testing, and maintaining proficiency in handling aerodrome control operations without involving any risk to property or lives, and at much lower cost than training in actual air traffic control conditions.
6 airport scenario settings are installed in the simulator program. These airport scenario settings can be used to test the air traffic controller's proficiency in the airports of Manila, Clark, Mactan, Plaridel, Davao, and in a generic single-runway airport. Designed to artificially recreate the control tower environment, the tower simulator is also cost-efficient as it offers lower expenses than conducting training in actual air traffic control conditions. The duration of the overall aerodrome training module for the Comprehensive Air Traffic Service usually takes 6 weeks, with 2 weeks allocated for the lecture phase and 4 weeks for the laboratory phase. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The prevalence of warm and humid weather conditions in the country will continue until the end of the month. Meanwhile, the country's Weather Bureau assures there is adequate water supply for Metro Manila despite the dry season. JP Nunez reports why.
The heat index in 10 areas in Luzon values above 40 degrees Celsius today. Heat index is the measurement of how hot it feels when relative humidity is factored in with the actual air temperature. Based on the monitoring of the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA, Dagupan City tops the highest index values today with 47 degrees Celsius, followed by Apari, Cagayan, Ambulong, Batangas, Lawag, Ilocos Norte, Sangli Point, Cavite, Tuguegarao City, Clark, Pampanga, San Jose Occidental, Mindoro, Masbate City, and the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. A heat index above 40 degrees Celsius is considered dangerous due to the high likelihood of heat cramps and heat exhaustion. According to PAGASA, the warm weather condition in the country will persist until the end of the month.
Nandito pa rin talaga tayo sa tinatawag nating warm and dry season. So, posible pa rin natin ito maranasan hanggang dito sa katapusan ng Mayo.
Meanwhile, PAGASA hydrologist Sheila Schneider assures that there is enough water supply for Metro Manila residents despite the dry season. As of today, water level from Angat Dam is at 195.45 meters, while 98.78 meters in Ipo Dam and 78.21 meters in La Mesa Dam.
Hindi naman po dapat mag-alala kasi naman po kahit na po ito'y bumaba, nasa mas mataas pa rin naman po ito sa rule curve, which means yung rule curve po kasi yun yung magsasabi sa atin or masasatisfy yung mga requirements na or mga dapat supplyan ng dams katulad ng irrigation, water supply na yun nga yung para dito sa Metro Manila at saka sa power. So so far sa nakikita namin na base din sa forecast rainfall hindi naman po aabot na mas mababa pa po siya dun sa rainfall.
Schneider explains that the dams have enough water reserves due to the previous storms that passed the country last year. But despite this, the public is still advised to conserve water supply to avoid future water interruptions. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, panic arose on thousands of shoppers as the 18th tallest buildings in China began to shake. However, there was no reported earthquake in the region. Marvy Delfin will give us the details live. Marvy?
Kath, shocks in China arose on Tuesday as the Shenzhen Electronics Group or SEG Plaza began to shake unexpectedly at approximately 1 p.m., initiating an evacuation. The tremors were felt and sent the shoppers running to the streets. It was reported that by 2:30 p.m., the plaza was closed, and soon after the evacuation was completed, no more shaking was recorded. No deaths or injuries were reported. The statement released by officials states that investigation as to where the shaking originated through earthquake monitoring stations were made. It was said that no earthquakes were detected that day. In addition, assessments to the building structure was conducted and identified that there was no safety abnormalities that contributed to the shaking, as it was undamaged. The SEG Plaza is a 300-meter building which consists of a variety of outlets along the 70 floors, used for a majority of SEG electrical markets, SEG offices, and houses different restaurants. Back to you, Kath.
Thank you, Marvy Delfin, reporting live from Australia. Thousands of Palestinians have been displaced by a new wave of airstrikes from the Israeli army as U.S. President Joe Biden shows support for a ceasefire. Ia De Vera will give us the details live. Ia?
Kath, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported on Tuesday that more than 52,000 Palestinians have been displaced by the Israeli airstrikes, with around 47,000 seeking shelter in unrun schools in Gaza. According to the Israeli army, they are targeting an underground metro system or a network of tunnels being used by the militant group governing the Gaza Strip or the Hamas to avoid surveillance. Residences of 5 Hamas commanders have also been destroyed by the airstrike after the Israeli army asserted that their homes were being used as command and control centers. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has expressed his support for a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza conflict during a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and encouraged Israel to ensure the protection of innocent civilians. Furthermore, a readout of the call between the two leaders said that Biden renewed his firm support for the Israel's right to defend itself against indiscriminate rocket attacks. So far, the Gaza Health Ministry has reported at least 213 Palestinian casualties as a result of the airstrikes, 61 of which were children and more than 1,400 left wounded. In Israel, 10 people, including 2 children, have died from the conflict. Kath?
Thank you, Ia De Vera, reporting live from New Zealand. Postmenopausal women reports that their period returned after receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. Nina Bascon reports why.
An unexpected turn of events arise to some postmenopausal people who reported that they currently experienced a return of their period after receiving their COVID-19 vaccine. This anecdotal evidence provoked scientists and researchers to undertake an investigation. In the past few days, clinics have been receiving calls and complaints from menstruators that many women, including trans men, are experiencing changes to their menstrual cycle. Scientists are aware of the reports and affirm that it is possible that this is a side effect of the vaccine, as the immune system is involved in the menstrual cycle. They stated that the current evidence does not suggest an increased risk of menstrual irregularities, along with the vaccine causing any risk to fertility. The immune system's response to the vaccine can cause signals to be produced that fends off an introduced chemical. In this case, the female's reproductive system prepares the body to shed monthly in preparation for pregnancy, where a vaccination may disturb the process, causing premature periods to happen. If the links are proved to be true after the examination, scientists expect that it is a short-term side effect of the vaccine like other common side effects of headaches and muscle soreness. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Kat Dumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening.
And those are the reasons behind the news, May 19, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Anilo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.